This is the former Grafeneck killing facility near Grommandingen in the Reutlingen district of Baden-Württemberg. In 1940, at least 10,654 people with disabilities were systematically killed here as part of the medical homicide during the Nazi era, known as Aktion T4. Grafeneck Castle was built around 1560 as a hunting lodge by the Dukes of Württemberg and expanded into a Baroque castle in the years 1762 to 1772. In 1929, the Samaritan Foundation bought the castle, set up a home for the disabled, and in 1930 set up its own cemetery. At the beginning of World War II, Hitler decided to kill people who were physically and mentally challenged, the excuse being that they were a burden to a wartime economy. This was directed from a central office in Berlin's Tiergartenstrasse 4 and as such became known as Aktion T4. In the planning phase of Aktion T4, the Württemberg Ministry of the Interior in Stuttgart, which worked closely with the Berlin T4 central office, proposed Grafeneck as a suitable location for killing people. Thus Grafeneck became the first location in Germany for industrialized mass murder. The location was appropriate as the chateau grounds are excluded in the forest, as you can see in this video, and as there are only 2 roads up. Therefore, it was relatively easy to hide. The castle today is very much similar to what it was then. The chateau had sufficient space for the administrative staff and for the staff who were going to do the killing. The killing was done in an outbuilding some 400 meters or so from where it was kept out of the way of those in the administration. On the 13th of October 1939, Richard Alber was the district administrator of the Munzingen district, ordered the evacuation of Grafeneck Chateau. This was to take place on the following day. On the 14th of October 1939, it was officially confiscated for the purposes of the Reich. At the time of the requisition, there were around 100 patients and around 12 staff at Grafeneck. 4 days earlier, the nunnery at Reuter, near Bad Waldsee, had been informed by the Württemberg Ministry of the Interior that they were to receive these people. 4 buses took these people away. As far as I'm aware, all the patients who were transferred out of Grafeneck on the 14th of October 1939 survived Aktion T4. Over the next few months, Grafeneck was converted into a murder facility. The interior of the chateau was converted to administration and living rooms, and a police office was set up. A wooden barrack with around 100 beds was constructed. An outbuilding was converted into a gas chamber and a crematorium built. In addition, staff from Stuttgart and Berlin were recruited, which would have included doctors and nurses, police and security, administrators, domestics, and of course corpse burners. By the beginning of 1940, there were almost 100 people working there. One of those recruited for the T4 program at Grafeneck was the nurse Pauline Kneissler. She was born on the 10th of March 1900 as the daughter of a wealthy landowner near Bakhmut, Ukraine, who had lost almost everything in the aftermath of the Russian Revolution. The family acquired some land near Detmold, but this was lost in the economic crisis of the 1920s. Pauline Kneissler trained as a nurse and had worked in Berlin before coming to Grafeneck. Killings began on the 18th of January 1940. Means of death was via bottled carbon monoxide, which came from IG Farben Industry at the Ludwigshafen site, which is today BASF. The first victims came from the care home at Elfling in southern Bavaria. Eventually, victims came from 48 institutions for the disabled and mentally ill, 40 of which were in today's Baden-Württemberg, 6 from Bavaria, and 1 each from Hesse and North Rhine-Westphalia. They are, of course, modern administrative boundaries. The T4 organisers, Victor Brack and Karl Brandt ordered that the sick should only be killed by the medical staff, since Hitler's letter of authorization dated the 1st of September 1939 only referred to doctors. The operation of the gas tap in the killing facilities was thus the job of a doctor. However, sometimes no doctor was available, so another member of staff operated the gas. All Grafeneck doctors used only fake names as camouflage in correspondence with the outside world. The last killing was on the 13th of December 1940. Grafeneck closed because the authorities failed to keep the murders secret and there were increasing protests. After the closure, the personnel were transferred to Hadamar, where the killings continued until August 1941. Her work at Grafeneck and Hadamar was later classified by the court as being that of an assistant, since there was no evidence that she carried out killings at the time, and as she was not a doctor, she would not have been expected to do so. According to her own statements, she'd picked up and accompanied the people intended for killing from other institutions to Grafeneck, and in 1941 to Hadamar. She helped them undress, took them to the doctor's room, assisted during the examination, and finally took them to the antechamber of the gas chamber, where they were killed by others. The euphemistically caring sounding term, help with undressing, appears in a different light when we consider the statements of the nuns who were originally responsible for the care of patients at the Ietze monastery. At the beginning of the T4 campaign, the sisters believed that the patients could be safely transferred to another nursing home. When, after the second women's transport in November 1940, they saw how their laundry and clothes were torn and thrown upside down on a heap, they concluded that they had been violently torn from the victims' bodies and that the people were no longer alive in all probability. The T4 program slowed to a crawl after August 1941. However, it did not stop, and killings continued until even after the liberation of Germany. Most of the staff of the T4 killings were now free to do other things. Some ended up in the death camps in Poland. However, Pauline Kneissler was sent on a secret mission in occupied Minsk. From the T4 campaign killing those who were mentally and physically challenged, Pauline Kneissler continued in her career path of murdering the life the Nazis considered not worthy of life. This time, her role was the murder of wounded German soldiers on the Eastern Front. If you'd like to know more about Pauline Kneissler and the killing of wounded German soldiers, then I've done a much longer video on the subject. There's a link to it below, and there should also be a link at the end of this video. I upload every Tuesday and Friday at 2000 hours my time, that is Central European time. I'm located in Germany and Poland, so if you're interested in this type of subject matter, then you might like to subscribe. But for the moment, thanks for listening and all the best from me.